Hello, and welcome to Sprint Innovate 2026 Design Thinking Training. My name is Al McLeod. So our goals for today are to give you an overview of design thinking and using AI in the challenge, a mock design thinking case study that'll be like really fast, and then some pitch training based on the case study plus pitch training insights. So when does innovation happen since this is an innovation challenge? So it happens at the intersection of these four lenses. The first one is called desirability, which is do customers want it or need it? The second one is viability, also called the business lens. Should we do it? Do we have is there can it be profitable? Is there a business model to support it? The third one is feasibility, which is all about the technology. Can we do it? Finally, all about integrity. What's the impact on planet and people of our innovation? Design thinking says to start through the human lens. So here's the design thinking model. It looks linear, but it's not. It's very iterative. But the idea is you should start the way we're going to show right now. So we have start with a wicked problem, challenge that you can't solve or easily using normal means because you want a structured creative problem solving process like design thinking. This is a great tagline. Don't fall in love with the solution, fall in love with the problem. That's why we always start in the problem space first before we move into the solution space. So let's take our problem, we begin, and the first step is called empathy in the problem space. And this first step is all about understanding your customer and understanding the domain that you're working in so that you can get a better idea of how to solve what problems need to be solved. And this is called divergent. This line, it represents diverging. So what you're doing here is you're coming up with lots of different information, lots of different insights and research and things like that, to the point where you have a lot of research here when you finish the empathy stage. Then you move into define, and now you're converging because what you're doing is you're taking all that information and synthesizing it into things like insights and stimulus. And you're really trying to understand exactly what problem you could solve for humans. That is aligned with this original problem, by the way. So the next step after that is you're going to ideate. So you take this new problem. So what you do is you reframe the old problem statement into something that is more specific for humans. And then what you do is you come up with lots of ideas using the power of your team. So here you're diverging again because you're coming up with lots of ideas. Called divergent thinking. So here you're coming up with even hundreds of ideas, right? Many ideas in this case, right? So, and then once you come up with all those ideas, the next step is to converge again, because you're going to, as a team, you're going to cluster those ideas, come up with a couple ideas that you really like, or even one idea you really like, and then you're going to build a prototype. You can develop a prototype quick and fast. You're going to show it to users to test it, and then you're going to iterate. And that is the design thinking model. So let's talk about the Bank of America Keep the Change program. It is the one of the more successful design thinking cases that we use constantly because it's very easy to illustrate. So in 2004, Bank of America hired a design agency, IDEO, to boost their enrollment numbers. They asked, how might we encourage new customers to open bank accounts? So in the empathy stage, they pulled together a bunch of customers, did a bunch of research, and they came up with some insights. Here's a few of those insights. So one woman rounded up in her checkbook for easier calculations and a buffer. Single mother struggled with saving, had nothing to put aside, and even a small amount saved is good, provided a financial buffer for managing financial security. So then the problem was reframed as how might we help families save money? So how might we encourage new customers to open a bank account? By helping them save money. So then they put together a diverse team of product managers, finance experts, software engineers, operations people, did a bunch of brainstorming sessions and came up with 80 product concepts and one favorite idea uh, in the ideate stage, and that is the Keep the Change program. So they developed, once they voted on that solution, they then created a cartoon video explaining the program. The Keep the Change program is quite simple. You have a debit card associated with a savings account. If you buy a coffee for $2.50, charges your card $3 and puts 50 cents in your savings account. By the end of the year, you have money saved, micro saving. They tested it in an online survey with 1,600 participants, and the Keep the Change program quickly took off. Attracted 2 million in the first year customers, and then 12 million over since then, with a total of $2 billion. 3 in 5 new Bank of America customers choose to enroll in the program with 99% program retention. Very successful. So you see how that works, right? So now let's talk a bit about AI though for a minute. So as we go to start to do the training session, AI is a co-pilot. It is not an autopilot. Specifically, particularly in the case of design thinking, since we're trying to design for humans, the humans have to be in charge. That's a core requirement for using AI in design thinking. So let's talk about that. So I think of creativity, I think of these elements going into creativity, things like diversity. So if you look at your team, right, you have a diverse team. You have different people on your team who have different lived experience. They may be from different educational programs. They're different ages, maybe different genders, different ethnicities. That is diversity of your team. That's where a lot of your creativity will come from if you use it properly. Domain expertise is about an understanding of the field that you're going to be, industry that you're going to be innovating in. So in here, if you have enough domain expertise, that's great. If not, you can use AI or just Google to do your research. Stimulus is just how can you think out of the box? And so stimulus are things that are outside of um, the field that you're working in particular, that will stimulate ideas in your head that will create out of the box solutions. And insights are things that will come from your empathy and research and things like that that you'll discover, like the woman rounding up in her checkbook. So this is powered by humans, for the most part, powered by humans and assisted by AI. IDEO is the world's leading design company. We'll use them as examples several times today. And they have this new design thinking certificate. And this is one of the things they show is that, human strengths and AI strengths together comes up with AI enhanced innovation. 100% agree, but the left side has to lead. The left side is the lead. And if you look at the human strengths like empathy, creativity and innovation, intuition, consciousness, and let's add a few more, critical thinking, curiosity. These are all human strengths that are absolutely essential in design thinking. And AI strengths are things like processing speed, consistency, broad and various perspectives, those things are also important, but they're secondary to those human strengths in design thinking. Here's another slide they use, which I really like, but I add two pieces to it. One of those is domain research, and the other one is prototyping support, both which are easily supported by AI. So, you can use it to create lots of ideas, which of course, I recommend you do your human brainstorming first and then use AI to supplement your ideas. And then also it can think out of the box. By that, you could say, for example, what are some of the newest innovations around customer service in banking, if you're in insurance, for example, and you could look at those for ideas. And then you've got a deeper insights into human behavior, and we'll show how we can use AI to help us pull, large volumes of things like trends and customer sentiment. And then finally, you can use it for testing, but that's not applicable in this because we won't have enough time for that kind of testing for sure. But domain research and prototype support for sure as well. So the AI tools I use in mock humane training are ChatGPT images for images and chatbot prototype that we developed, research journey maps. I use Vercel V0 for an assessment app prototype. I use Claude for open source intelligence process, which we'll talk about soon. And I also use Nano Banana Pro for images as well. So one of the things I'll want to show you is, and we'll put this slide up at the end as well. John Robbins, one of our mentors, John, you in the room here. Yeah, John is developed a great AI and design thinking video series. Really, really good. It's actually nice and brief, but very, very, really nails it. So I highly recommend you watch this before you go any further. Watch this today when you get a chance, or tonight or tomorrow morning. This is a really, really good video series. And so you can get all three episodes through this link on LinkedIn. So who's Humane Canada? Canada, this is Canada's National Federation for Humane Societies and Societies for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. It's a nonprofit working to end animal cruelty. And so that's who our mock case study is for, Humane Canada. So their problem statement is how may we reduce the number of pets being returned to shelters? So we start in the problem space, as we know, and we start with empathy and define. So step one is empathy. Why? To understand what customers care about, to identify the real customer problem to solve, to remove your assumptions and uncover customer needs and problems we're solving. How do I empathize? We want to understand the perspective of the customer. You want to observe, engage, watch, and listen. And then you want to do secondary research because you want to learn the broader context. In this case, it's the pet industry. And so what's going on there? Right? That's what you're trying to understand. What are the details? And learn about recent innovations and challenges of the subject area. And then get facts and figures. You need to understand the context of the challenge. So here, when you're doing secondary research is how we'll start, right? And you're looking at like internet research and then, looking for media articles and really trying to understand what are the challenges and what are the goods and bads happening in the industry that could affect your challenge. And then using something called open source intelligence to try to gather data from online sources that are available to kind of do gather some signals and some trends and things like that. So Humane Canada has done some of its own research, and what it does is it kind of records why people have surrendered their pet. And so the top 10 reasons are these ones: housing issues, financial constraints, etc. But the real big one is educational gaps. And the reason for that is often these educational gaps underpin the real reason. It's the cause of the challenge. So a key insight here is that a lot of these surrenders are preventable through education and early intervention and supportive policies. So if you look at OSINT, which I've introduced a little bit ago, it's all about using it as a pre-empathy feed. And what that means is it's not as good as talking to real customers because you are gathering data from kind of open source stuff, and some of it is more valid and more believable than others. So you have to use some critical thinking and scrutiny, but it is still a very valuable source, I find. So here you can, go after social media and forums, news and blogs and websites and reviews, etc., and pull the data together to create these kind of signals and information that you can use. So here's a sample, a simple OSINT report with to get pre-empathy signals. All right, so here we go. So, you are an OSINT analyst at Humane Canada, search for Canadian problems and trends in the companion animal industry, especially amongst new pet owners when you're less and veterinarians. Search appropriate social media sites such as Twitter, X, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, and animal companion industry articles, reports, surveys, and blog posts. Show me the top 10 problems and top 10 trends with an emphasis on the ones that are emotion. So, and here it gives you, and the nice thing, of course, about this is it actually gives you all where it got all the data, and then you can decide, whether what's believable or not. So here you go, veterinary care affordability crisis, and it talks about whether highly emotional, just kind of, etc. All right, so that is was in, and here's the results we got. So these are the 5 top ones. And of these 5 top ones, these 3, pet owner guilt and financial anxiety, new pet owner overwhelm and fear of failure, and behavioral challenges and inadequacy, are really things that are like very highly aligned, very often aligned to lack of just some mistakes due to lack of knowledge and that has happened on behalf of the pet owners. And so those are the some of the challenges we know that are there. So next thing is about the numbers of pets. So let's look at some of this research. So the number of vets is down, and that's because the number of vets is reducing year over year. And the number of vets they're through retirement, and number of vets joining the veterinary field is lower. So we're actually down the number of vets. And we're up in pets, so we're up to 60% of Canadian pet households with at least one pet. And 98% of pet owners say their pets improve their quality of life, and 94% of pet owners consider their pet a family member. So now let's talk about systems thinking. So system thinking is really something a little different. It is something that I always just make sure I think about when I'm doing design thinking work because it's critical for complex innovation. It focuses on the needs and experiences of the customers of the system. It considers systems and stakeholders while designing great solutions, and it collaborates with stakeholders like employees, partners, and suppliers. And the idea is you zoom in, and one of the concepts is to zoom in and out to get different perspectives. You can zoom right in to see a particular interface or that the customer is using, and then you can zoom back out to see how is that interface being supported by which stakeholders to make sure that everybody has what they need to do the job. This is called the stakeholder map for the Canadian pet industry, and as you can see here, it's like every other industry, it's very complicated, and each of these is actually an aggregate, right? So this is an aggregate for service providers. This is one for more product providers and high-level service providers like insurance. And then you've got the SPCAs and Humane Canada, National Welfare Works. So you see, you've got all these different organizations. Later on, we'll talk about how we used some of these partner with some of these organizations. So then you want to get the perspective of target customers. So you want to do some interviews and then take the results of those interviews and put them on empathy maps. You want to do journey maps to basically show how the customer, what's the customer's job they're trying to do and how how that journey goes for them. And then develop personas. That's your target customer you're trying to appeal to. So if you're going to do interviews, when you go to do interviews, right, you want to have a plan for it. You want who's going to do the interview, who's going to lead it, what are the roles, who's going to take notes, etc. And then, what are the areas of questions that you can ask? And you want to listen more than you talk. Ask open-ended questions, not ones that can be answered with yes or no. You get very limited data out of there. Use the 5 whys technique, which is where you ask a question and then you ask a follow-up why again in order to get to root cause. Set up your roles before the interview and dump your results using a tool like this, using sticky notes on a tool like this. So we did a bunch of pet owner interviews with new pet owners, experienced pet owners, multiple pet owners, etc. And so this tool, by the way, has four categories of information: influences, tasks and goals, thinks and feels, and pains. So here's the influences, the social media and internet sources, but which ones can they trust? And veterinarian, but with limited access. And what are they trying to do? Well, they're trying not to go broke due to expensive vet care. And I want to be knowledgeable and responsible pet owner. That was a new pet owner. Trying to understand the pet's medical situation, their meds and ailments. And somebody said they want to provide a great life for their new pet. And somebody else said they want to provide better quality life for their aging dog. How do they think and feels? Well, first-time pet owners are feeling overwhelmed and anxious. Someone said we made lots of mistakes in the early days with our pet. Second-time pet owners said they'd like it to do a better job this time. And almost everybody felt like should be a better, more modern way for pet care. And somebody said, we love our vet, but they're a small team with limited resources. Everybody seemed to like their vet. So now the pain points, dog is older, hard to get good medical care, very hard to get good information to make decisions, lack of vet specialists for complex or rare illnesses, and new pet owners where to get guidance. So then we talked to the veterinarians and their influences from Canadian Vet Association and colleges. Tasks and goals are to run a successful veterinary practice during a challenging time, keep up with all the responsibilities of running a small business and being a medical profession, which isn't easy. And what do they feel? They'd like to have more tech-enabled practice. They can be more efficient. They wish pet owners would listen to us about preventative pet health, and many new pet owners don't really understand what they're getting into, so too many end up in shelters. They said it's really tough. We have a small team with limited resources. And the vet also said this key insight that the first 90 days set the foundation for the pet owner journey, because that's when the pet is, that's the early days of the pet, which is where everything's set. From a pains perspective, lack of time for customers, vet shortage, competition for employees, and many customers struggle to pay their vet bills, which really puts the vet under a lot of pressure. So then we developed this kind of journey map on the overall life of a pet. life cycle from pre-pet all the way to senior pet and end of life. And what we did was we looked at that and we just focused really on the pain points. And what we found is the biggest pain points were around information and support. And so they really struggled, and this, whether or not whichever part of the pet's life it was in, and also trying to figure out what pet to get, just as challenging. So pet owners said the lack of information guidance is the number one issue, and vet said the first 90 days set the foundation for the pet owner journey, as you saw in the previous. So now let's talk about our persona, which is Sylvia. She's a 25-year-old data science instructor. She's a tech-savvy new pet owner, and we think of her as an extreme user, which means she's kind of like stands out as different. So her goals are to build knowledge and routines for responsible pet care, balanced pet care with busy schedule. Her concerns are the high cost of vet care and worried about managing pets' needs. So here's what a journey map could look like with Sylvia, with the current state of the industry. And the problem here is, even though Sylvia could be a very capable pet owner, she has no support systems. So here's the five stages of that journey: exploration and readiness, breed matching and decision making, pre-adoption preparation, adoption in first weeks, and learning, training, and routine building. And when you look at that, each stage of that, each one has challenges and then feelings and outcomes, which are sometimes, quite often, less than positive. And what that leads to is, if you look at the scale of overwhelm, state of overwhelm, by that 90 days, you can be feeling much less confident and you could be at a high surrender risk eventually. So now we're at the define stage, step two. So we want to understand more about the problems, so you know where to focus the solution. We want to focus on the human and business parts of the problem and deeply understand customers' unmet needs and reframe that problem. So want to consolidate what you learned, capture insights, questions, and other research observations. Use sticky notes for that, and then you can cluster them together, group them into themes, and then write a problem statement from your insights. A new problem statement that is more customer focused, human focused. So now let's look at we first thing we do is we gather all our insights together, we synthesize them, we cluster them into themes. The five themes we picked: vet care, industry info and access, digital services, and new pet owners. And we focused mostly on the new pet owners, frankly. And then we reframed that problem statement. The first thing we did just was create a point of view statement. So this is when you make your persona speak, right? So new pet owners like Sylvia need a way to get effective guidance and support because she wants to provide the best quality of life for her new pet. So the original challenge was, how might we reduce the number of pets being surrendered to shelters? To how might we prepare, guide, and support new pet owners so they can live their best life with their pets? So now we enter the solution space. Now we're going to talk about solutions, right? And so we're going to ideate, prototype, and test. So we're going to we've reframed that problem statement. Here we are. And now we're going to go. So transition from learning about the problem to creating and exploring solutions. Think about build on the ideas of others and remove constraints. Brainstorm ways to solve the unmet needs of the customer and do it fast and not focusing on quality or feasibility, and discuss ideas, clarify, and evaluate. So here are the rules of brainstorming. So we'll just focus on brainstorming. The first one, this is from IDEO, the world's leading design company. So the first one is deferred judgment. Creative spaces are judgment-free zones. They let ideas flow so people can build from each other's great ideas. So you want to let people come up with their ideas without shooting down. That should be a rule. Don't shoot anybody's idea down. Encourage wild ideas, because out-of-the-box ideas can be really terrific. And sometimes they sound outrageous, but you can actually just pare them back a little bit, and it's a great idea. So encourage those wild ideas. Build on the ideas of others, so you can use and. So if someone says an idea, you can say, oh, that's great, and then add to that idea. Stay focused on the topic and one conversation at a time. These are what your facilitator should be doing, just in order to keep the ideas around the central theme. For if they go too far off, you might put them in a parking lot, but you want to encourage people and no, let's focus on our problem here. Be visual, use color markers and post-its and draw pictures, and that'll help with your creativity, and go for quantity. In order to have good ideas, you have to have lots of ideas. Okay, so here is IDEO's method.
All right, team. Thanks for coming for a brainstorm today. We have a really interesting topic. The local zoo, the visitors are down 20%. So how might we boost the number of visitors to the zoo? This is a serious problem for them. They want to stay open. They need more funding, all this kind of good stuff. So let's spend a few moments now first and get a few ideas down. Remember, we're going for quantity. Let's see how many ideas we can get. And also, there's so many good ideas out there. Let's push ourselves, try to get closer to the ridiculous. That might be brilliant. All right, so I'll start us off. I had a date night. So, and you might hang out with the animals that are in action, if you know what I mean. All right, what else? What else you got? Oh yeah, what do you got?
What if we do a dress up like your favorite animal day? So it's like a costume themed thing.
Very cool.
What about zoo pop-up at places that kids frequent, the mall, school, parks?
Home Depot, I know, has programs for little kids to build, like, you know, birdhouses and stuff like that. So it could be all these different crafts, but they're sort of animal lessons, so
Love
kids
it,
learn.
love
And
it. I have a night camping, so you get to camp overnight there. So let's get a 5 or 10 more.
So I figure loyalty cards work for airlines and for burritos, so why not have it work for the zoo?
Building off the whole celebrity thing, what if like we pretend that animals are celebrities and we give out like a gossip magazine as an advertisement?
So for an hour every day, they vacate the cages, and you get to go swing on the bars and everything that the monkeys have. So it's zoo turn playground.
That's awesome.
What we'll do next is we'll look at these and look for some themes and cluster a couple. And then I think we should even prototype 1 or 2 of these and then take them over to the zoo. It's going to be great, a lot of fun.
Yeah, so let's talk about what we saw there. So there's 2 things about that video. First of all, IDEO's facilitation method they have for brainstorming is really good, and I recommend you follow it. So the first thing is they let everyone brainstorm on their own for a few minutes so that people can develop a backlog of ideas. And as they come up with the ideas, they write them up and maybe even draw a little picture, as you saw some of them do, on sticky notes. And they keep them there. And then when the brainstorming starts, the group brainstorm, as you give your idea, you pass your sticky note as well as you say your idea out loud to everybody. So that's a great process. Now, did you notice what went wrong in that session? There was one mistake that happened. It was the woman who had the idea for the Home Depot kind of animal lessons that are crafts that are animal lessons. It sounded like a really cool idea, but it went nowhere because she didn't have a sticky note developed. And so the facilitator just went on. To be honest with you, I consider that the facilitator's idea because he should have just said, oh, thanks, that's a great idea. Write that up on a sticky note, would you? And then keep going while she's writing that up on the sticky note. So now we did our great group brainstorm. So here we are. So we've got all of our ideas out here. We spent, half an hour, 45 minutes coming up with ideas. And then next step is we cluster them. So we group them into different clusters. So you've got guidance, finances, business model, digital services, community, and gamify. And then what we do is we cluster, because we cluster and we now vote on those clusters. So everybody gets some votes and we pick the ones that we think are the right ones based on our problem statement. And so we came up with 1 guidance, 2 business model, 3 finances. And of course, we can't do them all at once. So we decided to do guidance and business model because we need some way to pay for the app. So that's why the business model got selected. The reason for the colors is these 2 here are actually connected. They actually are part of the same, will be some part of the same app. And these 3 are also connected, as is this one here with this. Okay, so now let's do step 4, prototype. So we've got our idea and we want to learn if the solution works with minimal effort and cost, do it really fast and cheap. We want to build to think and generate new ideas and explain complex interactions, not doing that verbally, you're showing so that they can use it. Learn how others respond to your ideas and then start experimenting with a solution, right? Get real feedback and iterate and update based on what you learn. So here's our stakeholder map updated. So now we've got the stars beside. These are the participants that worked with us in this, develop these prototypes and this whole concept. And then also we had a Redwood College Polytech who is helped us on the technology solution through a work integrated learning program. So let's talk about the type of prototype types of prototypes you can develop. So paper prototypes, new journey maps, click-through prototypes, wireframe, storyboards. You can read the list as well as me, but right there at the bottom is, for example, skits, chatbots, and vibe coded apps. So anything that can explain the idea, that's what you can use, right? And remember, we're not doing a completed product here. We're basically learning. All right, so here's our solution, a marketing campaign, an assessment app, and a AI chatbot. So our so here's our prototype for our Think Twice campaign, and we're we it's called Think Twice, Bone Up on Pet Ownership Before You Take the Leap. And it's really kind of an information campaign, but we are trying to drive people eventually to help us by adopting and reduce the number of returns to shelter or surrenders to shelters, and those all affect our costs. So I can also consider it marketing because we're trying to get them to do what we're asking them to do here. So anyway, so the core message is think twice, love for life. Pet ownership is a long-term commitment. And we talk about the life of the pet. Think about a 10 to 15-year commitment. Think about the cost and care. Educate people so they can make educated decisions. And then, we did this the storyboard. The woman saying, should I get a pet? Her friend says, you should try the new Humane app. It will help you. And she says, thank you for telling me about the Humane app. I used it to adopt my puppy. And there she's on her first vet visit. So here is the Humane Canada Pet Ownership Assessment app. And here we are. We're going to take the readiness assessment. I have less than 2 hours a day. I have a small apartment with no yard. I have only that much. I never had a pet. I have some uncertainty, and I have a limited emergency fund, and it gives me a low score. So now it says, you should consider fostering first. And then so I can go into the fostering app and just kind of understand what that means. And the objective of using the fostering app would be to keep me in the system, but to see if they can help me actually reach the point where I can adopt. So now the pet parent guide is our chatbot that we've created. This is the star of the show because this is the one I expect people to use a lot. And this is our solution to that 90-day start that vets tell us that are so important. We agree with, by the way. So here we go. So this is not a medical tool. It is a tool to support and guide parents, and it will kind of steer away from the medical stuff and tell them to go see a vet or whatever, but it will help them need the vet less, frankly. So here's a question. Can you give me a week-by-week guide for my first 3 months with a 2-year-old adopted husky that's in good health and doesn't have any real training or socialization issues? I asked the shelter folks, can you give me a list of questions to ask the shelter as well? So it always says it's not a substitute for regular veterinary checkups or physical exams, etc. And then it talks about take a breath, adopting a 2-year-old pet husky who's to be healthy and without major behavior is a very workable starting point, even if this is your first dog or first husky. And then it goes into a week-by-week guide for the first 12 weeks and a practical shelter savvy question list. So part one, your first 3 months, week by week. And here you go, framing, decompression of observation. Week two, routines and gentle enablement. It tells you kind of what not to do, like dog parks, over introducing visitors, stuff like that. But as you can see, it's quite comprehensive and you can dig into any part as well. Absolutely. Okay, here's another one. Let's look at one here that we got. One I like is looking at bulldogs versus pug puppies. So here you go. So you've got your bulldog puppies, and what are they like? Personality, energy, size and strength, all those kind of things. Best fit for, and the pug puppy, personality, energy, etc. Best fit for, and then you see the side by side snapshot, and then it really starts to talk about like, what do I mean, maybe bulldog puppies are more than you think. So anyway, very interesting. And then finally, I'll do one more quick one, and that is we'll look at a collar versus a harness for a Chorky. Okay, so a Chorky is a small dog, Chihuahua Yorkie breed. And it talks about, from a safety perspective, harness is the safest, and it talks about that they have delicate neck and tracheas. So this is not medical device, but it is guidance and help, right? So that's the kind of help you can get that will keep you out of a veterinary situation. Okay, that is the chatbot. So now if you look at the introduction of the assessment guide and the chatbot, etc., and we get this now, this optimized pet ownership journey for Sylvia, who this is right up her alley as a tech savvy first time, pet owner, new pet owner, and she's got and then here you go, you get the same stages again. You see key interactions, readiness, self-assessment, realistic scenarios and guidance, lifestyle-based breed matching versus Facebook-based breed matching, compelling insights, budget and home setup, checklists, etc. And as you can see, your confidence is building throughout the journey to the point when you're really less overwhelmed and you're much less likely to return a pet to surrender a pet to a shelter. So step 5 is test. So you want to see what people really think about your idea and refine and flesh out details based on the customer input. It's an interactive stage to get feedback. Does it solve the customer problem? And using the prototype to interactively learn this and then get feedback on the prototype from customers. And those quotes can be actually very helpful. If you actually get a chance to do that, they're very helpful in your pitch. So here's a feedback grid, simple 2x2, where we just recorded customers' feedback, pet owners' feedback from the grid. So I love the new AI chatbot. I'll be a customer for sure. And the assessment tool for don't like more detailed and diagnostic information would be helpful. It's a really good point. And then questions and ideas. I like questions and ideas the most because they give you things that that you can think of for the future and your future of your app or your solution. Okay, so let's go through this. So there's the mock case study. Here we go. So it started with how might we reduce the number of pets being surrendered to shelters. We did our empathy and we found out more pets, less vets. Shelters are overwhelmed. Lack of pet owner knowledge is a major contributor to pet surrenders. Vets say the first 90 days are critical for success, and new pet owners want pet information and guidance. Problem was reframed as how might we prepare guidance support new pet owners so they can live their best life. We had a joint team of Humane Canada and several key partners during ideation. We developed a variety of ideas, clustered them, and picked 2 clusters to move forward with, providing guidance to new pet owners and a business model approach. And then we developed a few prototypes, a marketing campaign concept, a pet ownership readiness assessment app, and a custom GPT to provide pet owners with guidance and support. We've made several changes based on feedback. For example, we linked the assessment app with fostering and adoption apps to continue the discussion with the potential pet owner, and we're ready to go. So one thing I want to end here on as we're going towards the end here is I want to talk about empathy. So when you're doing your empathy work, listen at the edges. You want to observe people who feel pain more intensely. That's why I asked about the emotional ones, right? And ask about their emotions and workarounds. And you think about the woman who rounded up in her checkbook, right? That is a workaround she developed. And then you can translate those extreme comments into universal truths. And then what human need underlies the extreme experience. And that, for example, the Bank of America is the need to save and provide financial safety and actually risk management when you think about it. So the opportunity is designed from the extreme to serve the many. Create solutions that start as options and scale outward. So if we look here, a couple of these extreme user types in design thinking, we had our new pet owners who really are a lot of new pet owners are, more tech savvy, and they're kind of more interested in changing the way pet ownership happens. But we also think that once we provide this solution for them, other pet owners will step up and want to use it well. But if you look at arthritic users, that was an interesting one. The idea was asked to redesign the vegetable peeler for a company, and they used to be these metal handled kind of things. And what happened was they were doing this project, and one of the people on the project had a family member with arthritis. And so they actually used her as the extreme user to design for it because the vegetable peelers were so painful for her. And what they found was that once they designed the tool for her with a kind of a wider handle, a spongy handle, everybody wanted that one. So another example of that. So when does that innovation happen? Let's test our solution. It helps animal shelters, vets, pets, and pet owners. Positive feedback from pet owners and vets. Provides 5 regional vet colleges with applied research and will opportunities. Business model is a combination of grants, corporate sponsors, and donations. Cost savings from reduced pets and shelters, and partner support for tech development and expertise. The proof of technology was successful. The chatbot provides guidance from regional veterinary colleges, the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association, Humane Canada Resources, partner support for tech development and expertise, and of course, better lives for pets and homeowners and a healthier pet industry. And that's it. Thank you very much.